The number was never the whole story. That is the first thing I want you to understand. When Iran claimed that more than 200 American soldiers had been killed in a single day, most people immediately asked the obvious question. Is it true? That is a fair question. It is also the wrong first question, because in a crisis like this, a number is not only a number can be a weapon, a number can move markets, a number can freeze a government. A number can force the Pentagon to answer a question before the Pentagon is ready to answer it, and that is exactly why this moment matters. Iran did not simply say American forces had suffered losses. It did not say there had been casualties. It did not say a battle had taken place. Iran gave the world a specific number, 220. That is not an accident. Specific numbers create pressure in a way vague claims do not. If Iran had said many Americans were killed, Washington could have brushed it aside as propaganda. But when Iran says 220, it puts a figure into the air. It gives journalists something to repeat. It gives families something to fear. It gives markets something to price. It gives political opponents something to demand answers about. And once that number enters the global bloodstream, the burden shifts. Now America has to respond. That is the real story. Not whether Iran's number is exactly right. Not whether it is inflated. Not whether it was designed for domestic consumption inside Iran. Those things matter. But they are not the deepest layer. The deeper layer is that Iran has learned how to use America's own political system as part of the battlefield. Let me explain that carefully. In the old style of war, a country attacked a base, destroyed equipment, seized territory, then announced vividly in the new style of war, especially when a weaker power is facing a stronger one, you do not only attack the body of the enemy, you attack the enemy's decision cycle, you attack its public confidence, you attack the relationship between what the government knows and what the population is allowed to know. That is what Iran just tried to do. It inserted a number into America's domestic nervous system, 220. If the Pentagon denies it immediately and clearly, then the claim may collapse. But if the Pentagon uses cautious language, if it says it cannot discuss operational details, if it refuses to give a counter number, then the claim lies. It does not need to be proven right away. It only needs to remain unresolved long enough to create pressure. That is the casualty trap. The casualty trap works like this. A country makes a shocking casualty claim against a larger power. The larger power cannot confirm it because doing so may expose operational details. It cannot fully deny it if it has not completed internal verification. It cannot stay silent without looking evasive. And every hour that passes gives the claim more oxygen. That is why this moment is more dangerous than a normal propaganda claim. If Iran exaggerated, it still forced Washington into a defensive posture. If Iran told part of the truth, it created a political crisis. If Iran told the full truth, then the United States is sitting on one of the deadliest days for American forces in modern history. Every scenario is bad for Washington. That is the point. Now look at the American response. The most important thing was not a press release. It was not a briefing room statement. It was not a cable news interview. The most important response was physical. The United States moved an E-6B Mercury into the picture. Most people hear that and do not understand what it means. They think it is just another military aircraft. It is not. The E-6B is an airborne command post built for the most extreme scenario a nuclear power can imagine. It exists so the United States can still communicate with its ballistic missile submarines if ground-based command systems are destroyed. In plain terms, it is a flying link to America's nuclear deterrent. That does not mean nuclear war is coming. I want to be very clear about that. But it does mean Washington wanted Tehran, Moscow, Beijing, and every other capital watching this crisis to understand one thing. This is not a local skirmish anymore. The United States was signaling that the crisis had entered a level where nuclear command and control assets had to be visible. That is not routine political theater. That is not a normal response to a small militia attack. That is a message written in the language of strategic deterrence. But here is where the situation becomes almost paradoxical. The aircraft was meant to project strength. It also revealed anxiety. That is the second thing I want you to understand. When a great power deploys an asset like that, it is not only telling its enemies, do not test me, it is also telling the world that the test was serious enough to require that message. In other words, Iran's claim, whether accurate or inflated, forced America to answer at the highest symbolic level, short of direct escalation. That is a win for Iran in the information space. Not because Iran defeated the American military, not because Iran can win a conventional war against the United States. It cannot. The win is smaller and more dangerous. Iran made the United States reveal that the crisis was serious. That is the kind of victory weaker powers look for. They do not need to destroy you. They need to make you show fear. They need to make you spend money. They need to make you move assets. They need to make your allies ask whether your confidence is real. They need to make your public wonder what is being hidden. And if they can do that with one number, the number has already done part of its work. Now step back and look at the broader context. For years, the United States treated Iran as a problem that could be managed by pressure, sanctions, airstrikes, naval deployments, covert operations, diplomatic isolation. The assumption was simple. Iran could be contained because Iran was weaker, and Iran is weaker in the conventional sense. It does not have America-S Navy. It does not have America-S global basing network. It does not have America-S carrier groups. It does not have America's ability to move military power across oceans, but that is not the only kind of power that matters anymore. Iran has built a different kind of system. It has militias across Iraq and Syria. It has Hezbollah in Lebanon. It has relationships with the Houthis in Yemen. It has missiles, drones, mobile launchers, fast boats, cyber tools, and a political culture that understands how to absorb punishment. It has also learned to operate in the gray zone where war is real but not always officially declared. And most importantly, Iran understands that America's greatest military strength can become a political weakness. America has global reach. That means America has global exposure. American troops are spread across bases. American ships are in narrow waters. American aircraft operate from fixed facilities. American supply lines stretch across thousands of miles. American leaders have to explain casualties to voters. Iran does not need to match America ship for ship or plane for plane. It only needs to create enough risk across enough places to make America's position feel unstable. That is what this claim was designed to do. It was designed to say, your troops are not safe, your bases are not invisible, your public is not protected from fear, and your government cannot fully control the story. This is why the number matters, even if the number is contested. 220 becomes a strategic object. It sits in the middle of the crisis. It forces people to ask what happened. It forces the Pentagon to choose its words. It forces markets to think about escalation. It forces allies to wonder whether they are being pulled into something larger than they were told. And it forces the American public to confront a possibility many people in Washington do not want to discuss. A war with Iran would not be clean. It would not be a short air campaign followed by a victory speech. It would not be a replay of old American assumptions about precision power. Iran has spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation. It has not prepared to defeat America in a Hollywood battle. It has prepared to make any American victory too expensive to enjoy. That is the doctrine. Make the war spread, make the cost unpredictable, make the battlefield political, make the casualty count uncertain, make the stronger power look less in control every day. And now with one claim and one American deterrence signal, we are seeing that doctrine in motion. There's another layer here that people should not miss. Iran's claim was not only aimed at America, it was also aimed at Russia and China. Tehran wants Moscow and Beijing to see it as a partner that can tie down American power. It wants them to understand that Iran is not merely a sanctioned country asking for help. Iran is a pressure point against the United States. If Iran can force Washington to deploy strategic assets, if Iran can send oil markets into panic, if Iran can make America's Middle East posture look fragile, then Iran becomes more valuable to every rival of the United States. That is how weaker states gain leverage in a multipolar world. They become useful problems. Iran is trying to prove that it is a useful problem for America's rivals and a costly problem for America itself. That does not mean Russia and China want the crisis to explode into total war. They probably do not. A full regional war could damage energy markets, shipping routes, and their own economic interests, but they do benefit from an America that is distracted, overextended, and forced to spend political energy in the Middle East instead of focusing on other theaters. So Iran's message has multiple audiences to its own people. It says, we hit the Americans hard to America. It says, you cannot hide behind distance. To allies, it says, Washington may drag you into a crisis it cannot control. To Russia and China, it says, we are still capable of shaping the battlefield. That is why this moment cannot be understood as a simple casualty claim. It is a layered message. Now, let us talk about the danger ahead. The most dangerous scenario is not that Iran lies and America ignores it. That would be simple. The most dangerous scenario is that Iran's claim is partially true. America's response is partially hidden, and both sides begin making decisions based on incomplete information. That is how escalation happens. One side believes it has landed a major blow. The other side believes it must restore deterrence. The first side reads the restoration of deterrence as preparation for a larger strike. The second side reads the first side's next move as confirmation that restraint is failing. Action, reaction, misreading, counteraction. This is how wars grow beyond the original plan. And the Middle East is especially dangerous because the map is full of triggers. Iraq, Syria, the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, American bases, Israeli targets, Gulf oil infrastructure, Houthi missile lanes. Hezbollah pressure points. Every one of these can become the next point of ignition. The deployment of the E-6B was supposed to freeze the situation. It was supposed to say, stop here. But if Iran reads it as intimidation, it may decide that backing down would look weak. If Washington reads Iran's next move as defiance, it may decide that a limited response is no longer enough. If allies begin to panic, they may pressure America in opposite directions, some demanding restraint, others demanding punishment. That is the escalation maze. Once you enter it, every exit looks like humiliation to someone, and that is why the next move matters more than the first claim. What America should want is clarity, not bluster, not panic. Clarity: if American forces suffered casualties, the country will eventually need to know the truth. If Iran exaggerated, Washington needs to say so with enough detail to kill the claim. If operations are ongoing, leaders need to avoid language that creates even more uncertainty, because uncertainty is now one of Iran's weapons. It is not enough for America to have superior firepower. It also has to control the timing and credibility of the explanation. If it cannot explain what happened, Iran's version fills the space. If it overreacts, Iran can claim it struck a nerve. If it underreacts, Iran can claim Washington is hiding weakness. That is a very narrow lane, and that narrow lane is the real sign that the crisis has changed. The old assumption was that America could choose the tempo, America could decide when to strike, when to pause, when to escalate, when to speak, but a weaker adversary with missiles, proxies, information channels, and a high tolerance for pain can interfere with that tempo. Iran cannot control the whole board, but it can interrupt the rhythm. That may be enough, because modern war is not only about who can destroy more, it is about who can force the other side to make worse decisions. If Iran can make America rush, it gains. If Iran can make America conceal, it gains. If Iran can make America move nuclear command assets into view, it gains. If Iran can make the public ask whether the official story is complete, it gains. That does not mean Iran is winning the war. It means Iran has found a pressure point. America's pressure point is not merely its bases or ships. It is the gap between military secrecy and democratic accountability. Every empire has such a gap. Every government at war wants operational secrecy. Every public in a democracy demands truth when lives are lost. An adversary that understands that gap can exploit it. That is what happened here. The claim may be inflated, the number may be wrong, the propaganda may be obvious, but the pressure it created was real. And in war, sometimes the pressure matters before the proof arrives. So the question now is not only whether 220 Americans were killed, the question is whether Iran has found a way to make the United States fight on a battlefield. It does not control a battlefield of numbers, a battlefield of silence, a battlefield of public doubt, a battlefield where a single aircraft moving across the sky tells the world more than any official statement. That is why this moment should be taken seriously. Not because every claim from Tehran should be believed. It should not because every silence from Washington means guilt. It does not. But because the combination of a shocking claim, guarded official language, and visible nuclear command signaling means the crisis has entered a different category. The danger is no longer only what happened in one day. The danger is what both sides now believe they must do next. If Washington decides it must punish Iran to restore deterrence, the region moves closer to open confrontation. If Tehran decides the American response proves vulnerability, it may push harder if markets price in a Hormuz crisis. Economic pressure spreads. If allies panic, coalition management becomes harder. If Russia and China see an opportunity to keep America trapped, they will exploit it quietly. That is how one claim becomes a chain reaction. And the most important thing to remember is this: Iran does not need the world to fully believe the number. It only needs the world to doubt America's ability to control the story. That is the new battlefield. And right now, that battlefield is wide open.